everybody. Welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Frey, and with me today I have...
Hi, I'm Melanie Robinson. I'm a senior digital consultant with BIM Academy.
And let's start with that. What exactly is BIM Academy?
So BIM Academy is based in the UK, but we are expanding into the Vancouver region and doing a lot of work with our sister company, Ryder Architecture. We're an enterprise set up about 12 years ago by Ryder Architecture and Northumbria University here in England. And we're set up as a centre of excellence for all things digital construction. And with that comes learning and development, strategy development, information management, all things BIM. Yes, that's just a little bit about us.
And the project that we're referring to is the new Surrey Hospital and Cancer Centre, and it's a big one. It's 1.72 billion. I don't know if that's the biggest project in Vancouver, but it's definitely among the top. And so is this the biggest thing that BIM Academy has ever taken on? And what do you need to do at that scale digitally?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a really good question. We've had a couple of big projects on this scale throughout the world, in Qatar, in Hong Kong, in Australia, but certainly the biggest project that we've undertaken in North America, which is really exciting. And to really realize the use of digital on a building this scale, it really drives home the importance of structured information and structured digital data. There's a lot of complexities in hospitals, arguably the most complex building type in the world. I think you'd agree. A lot of complex equipment that goes in that building as well. So being able to utilize digital processes to ultimately help the client at the end of the day manage all that information is only ever going to be a benefit, and it scales as well as it can do. It is we've got to put a lot of processes in place and make sure everyone is bought into that process as well, and so that's certainly a challenge, but it's a challenge that I'm welcoming with open arms.
Mm-hmm. And I think key to the whole process is creating a digital twin. Digital twin might be underselling it, honestly, because it sounds like you have to essentially replicate a hospital inside a computer, like not just physically, but all the different factors and assets that go into that, which, like you said, is super complicated.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Especially when you think about digital twins and keeping that digital replica up to date as well. With any hospital project, as soon as you hand the keys over, it's going to change the next day for whatever reason. In defects liability periods, but also throughout life, it's windows are going to be broken and door handles are going to fall off. Hopefully not not immediately after it's handed over, but it's being able to make sure that digital replica or digital twin is ultimately reflecting what's happening in the physical reality.
And I know, having covered other hospital builds, like some of the complexities involve pathways of movement, stuff you don't think about as a civilian, but I'm sure people designing hospitals and certainly medical doctors and anybody else working there does, how you have to have, it has to be open 24 hours. You have to have pathways that are always clear for patients to get through on gurneys. Like all the equipment has to be of a certain kind because it has to be able to repel infection as much as they can. Like how much of that, well, all of it, I presume, you have to take into account when you build this thing?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head about the challenges that come with that and just how much we've got to think about. And that's another thing with hospital projects is there's equipment in there that you can't really comprehend. If you just think of like MRI machines, they've got to get them in there somehow, and the worst thing you can do is build a building where you can't get it through the door. And so ultimately you use the digital replica to test these scenarios, right, and to test that you can get your assets in and out. And then just slightly different from a hospital project, but we worked on building the digital twin for the Sydney Opera House, and that was of similar ilk in the sense that maintenance equipment was of a vast scale. Like we're talking incredibly large, and being able to trace the path of how it gets in and out of the building was of vital importance because of how much money is attached to these pieces of equipment. So it all boils down to money, as nearly everything does, but being able to test these scenarios before as much as a shovel hits the ground is only ever going to be a benefit to everyone involved. And then ultimately going into the use of the building as well, and being able to test how the building's in use by way of pedestrian simulation, how buildings and doctors and staff are interacting with the building. So I want to emphasize that it's not just about the capital project or design and construction, it's very much utilizing that digital model right the way through into life as well.
And you said you're a center for digital, or not digital excellence, but building excellence. Well, both, I suppose. So what, within obviously the realm of patient confidentiality and all that stuff, I'm sure there's stuff you can't talk about, but what can you talk about in terms of what you were able to pioneer in creating this digital version of the hospital and the whole structure?
Sure. Well, Canada is actually going through quite an exciting time in terms of digital construction, if I focus on that primarily, in the sense that here in the UK, we've been on this journey for quite a while in terms of standards and looking at digital construction from a process point of view, whereas that's emerging in Canada at the moment. So being able to bring over all the stuff that, you know, I've learned in my time in the industry into Canada, especially from healthcare projects here in the UK and as I mentioned earlier, abroad as well, and being able to utilize that on projects and get it right from the start is so fundamentally important, and being able to evidence that, because naturally people are a bit afraid of the unknown. But as I say, you're in such a powerful position to take on all these lessons learned and take on these case studies and identify the areas where you want to apply that. And one of the other areas that we're pioneering as well is the use of open data standards. And when I say that, I mean, you know, moving away from proprietary systems where you're locking yourself into a certain piece of software for X amount of years. It's looking at future-proofing the data that you're producing now, and using standards to govern that ultimately. And that is something that I'm really excited to be bringing to the table.
That's what leads me into my next question. I assume once this thing is built, that's not the end of the digital twin. You don't just file it away on a hard drive. Like, there's more to it than that, I would assume. Like, it's still part and parcel of the whole thing.
Oh, fundamentally, yes. And I'm pioneering, well, I'm pushing the term digital shadow at the moment to try and emphasize that role and that importance of keeping that information up to date. We're quite bad at handing over these amazing information-rich models just for them to remain as built, or even as designed, and not capturing the as built, you know, information status. What we need to get to is as maintained, and being able to rely on that information. So when I call up the digital model on any given day, I am confident that that's reflecting what's happening in my hospital, and you know, and that I'm able to see, you know, when that boiler was last replaced and what status it's in, and you know, when the next fire sprinkler needs, you know, maintained, etc., etc. So it's making sure that those processes are inherently woven into how people interact with the building afterwards as well. So yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there.
And you sort of touched on this before, but this is also not just about the hospital. It's about a digital transformation of all of Fraser Health Authority, kind of spearheaded with this hospital. So maybe you go into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Fraser Health Authority are an advanced client in terms of they know what they want from their information. They knew they wanted BIM processes. They knew they wanted it aligned to the international standards. Absolutely fantastic. But this is the a true case of applying these new standards and being able to bring that good stuff back into the authority, as you're saying. I'm a keen believer in spreading that stuff out to the estate and looking at your existing assets as well, and being able to bring that up to a standard where it's all speaking the same language. You're all your data's structured, all your data's findable and searchable, and being able to pull up the boiler certificate on building B, you know, and in your wider estate. So I think New Surrey Hospital is going to be the pilot for that, and be able to demonstrate the benefits, you know, and we're all talking about money all the time, and looking at the return on investment that this whole digital process is providing is an excellent opportunity.
Okay, and if anybody is interested, and I'm sure they are, in finding out more what BIM Academy is doing and what other projects you're working on besides this one, or this one in particular, where should they go?
So we've got a website. It's bimacademy.global. And we've got lots of case studies on there, but we also put out articles as often as we can across the various news outlets, construction news outlets. We would also encourage you to look at Ryder Architecture and especially the work they're doing in Vancouver in particular. So yeah, absolutely, give us a quick Google, and we'd be glad to see you.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us.
No worries at all. Thank you.